Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC. I'm your host, Phil Bakke, and I'm joined tonight by my co-host, Mikka Burrell. Mikka, how's your week been?
Not too bad. Was fun to do the watch along on Saturday. Our reaction to the goal, which I'm sure we'll talk about, going mini viral on our timeline. So that was cool. Still disappointed I missed the last episode though when you were in town, but I'm glad I got to see you at least towards the end of your trip. So
yeah. No, that was a small blessing that you got back into town and we were able to still hang, despite you not being able to record, which we did miss. I can't remember if I said it on air or off air on the last episode, but I was going into that episode, and I'm sure anyone who listened to that episode will be listening to this one and be like, why doesn't it sound as good as the last one? And that one being in person, I was just like, man, I'm already pissed off about how good this is going to sound just being in the studio.
Shout out Austin Young, the producer.
100%.
You made that sound real good.
100%. Yeah. He's just a man of many talents. Like, he flies under the radar because he's been like doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes for us. But I mean, photos, video, memes, photoshops of any sort, now audio
Total
production as well.
man.
Like, this man is, when it comes to creative stuff, like the man is prodigious.
Truly. But no one can pluck him off us. He's our chief, our CMO, our chief meme officer. So.
Yeah. Any decent meme that we've created has been Austin's, just for the record.
100%.
Well, if you are finding us for the first time, or for those of us who are back, or those of you who are back, make sure you're checking out the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all of them. So if you can subscribe, please do. We also have a YouTube channel and a Twitch, which we do those watch-alongs on. So if you are around for away games and you're like, man, I don't love listening to whatever ESPN Plus or CBS Sports or whatever platform the game is on, like, serves up in terms of commentary, we do offer an alternative listening experience. And like you said, Mikka, sometimes it produces some, based on what goes on the field, it sometimes produces some fun moments. And watching that Javier Nevarez goal definitely qualifies, because my word, we'll talk about that one in a second. But you can also follow us on social media at Seriously Loco. And we typically ask for listener input and feedback and things before episodes. But yeah, that I think gets the admin out of the way. Mikka, I mean, you talked about the 1-1 draw with Tampa Bay Rowdies. We watched it, from afar. But it was Javier Nevarez scoring from afar. That gave Locomotive ultimately a point down in Florida. What do you think about the fact that, I mean, I think sentiment out of this one in the fan base was largely that was a really hard fought draw, and it felt like there was maybe some optimism out of it because of how hard fought it was.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think we have to recognize that Tampa Bay, on another day, they probably blow us away like 3-4, 5-0 or whatever. They had a lot of shots on target, a lot of big chances that they missed. We just happened to have an absolutely stellar goalkeeper in Jahmali Waite. And there was a lot of good last-ditch defending in this one from Locomotive too. I mean, the clearance off the line from Dollenmeyer comes to mind. in the 28th minute, I think it was, where I forget who it was, if it was Arteaga or Chrysostome or someone was basically aiming at an empty net.
Yeah.
And Noah comes across really quickly to block it. So, yeah, you say hard fought, and I absolutely agree with that. I think that we did our best not to let the point slip away. And I think in the context of our season, maybe a point is, it can be a little bit disappointing because we do just need more points on the board, and we need to get up the table quickly. But at the same time, in this league in general, typically draws away from home usually do you just fine. And I think against a Tampa Bay Rowdies side that are, historically one of the best teams in the league, and without Lang being a tough place to play, I think we do have to take a little bit of positive out of that, while acknowledging that, on another day, Tampa Bay probably do blow us away. But we did enough, and right now, that is enough, I think. And so, yeah, that's kind of my overarching thoughts on it.
Yeah, it ultimately feels, I think we talked about the fact that it feels fine that, you take a point away from Al Lang, like you said. That's a good result in a great season. And it's definitely a good result when you're starving for points.
Right.
I think if Locomotive had found a way to win that game, we would have to be layering all kinds of keep your head type stuff in here about, so I'm not saying it's good that Rowdies equalize, but if we had gotten all 3 points, it would have been something bordering on highway robbery.
Right.
So I think all in all, coming away with a point is probably fine given the performance. And you can definitely point to those interventions. I think Dolenmeyer was really good on the night. Bolu again. I think even some of the shifts put in midfield, primarily Liam Rose, just in terms of the amount of work that was going into making sure that this wasn't totally terrible. Was really good. I did want to talk, the team primarily unchanged. The one sort of larger change was Joaquin Rivas comes in for Tumi Moshibane, Aaron Vasiljevic. They've all played this position at one point or another in the season. When Rivas was on the team sheet, the sort of reaction was, maybe this is the switch to a front three. Maybe we're seeing a little bit of a change of shape. It was not to be. And I feel like we just have to talk about this position, not necessarily Joaquin, not necessarily Toomey or even Aaron, but just this particular midfield position that for whatever reason just does not seem to add what it is, I'm sure, designed for, in that we've had these sort of attacking players playing in this position, and yet it never really seems like that player ends up in good positions either in midfield or in attack. And I think a lot of people, myself included, continue to be sort of vexed by this deployment of some of our attackers.
Yeah, it's an odd one because, you mentioned Arun Vasiljevic, you mentioned Tumi Moshibane. No one's really made this position their own, right? I think generally we're still trying to figure out what kind of footballer Vasiljevic is exactly. I think, at least as far as Seriously Loco is concerned, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't speak for you and Christian, but I think we all think Tumi Moshibane and Joaquin Rivas are forwards. And that doesn't mean that they Okay, good.
You're good.
And I'm not saying that to say they can't do this role, right? But it just, on what little evidence we have, it doesn't look natural to any one of them necessarily. And look, I do generally agree that we need 3 in midfield, but I just don't think we found our 3. And with Joaquin in particular in this game, I mean, there was just a lot of times where he would try to carry the ball in midfield and just get bodied off the ball or get dispossessed or lose possession. I think of the one Forrest Lasso like screamer attempt at the half-hour mark in the first half. That was immediately after just bodying Rivas off the ball in an unfamiliar position on the pitch for him, right? So, yeah, I just really don't think that Joaquin could really, really progress the ball from those areas. And again, that's not to say that he can't do it like forever, but we just haven't seen how that's supposed to work. And I think in Miami, he was primarily like a striker or a wide forward. So, and a goal scorer. And I do wonder about the wisdom, I don't know if that's the right word, of trying to make a 31-year-old change his game that dramatically, because I do think that that's a dramatic shift from going from a forward to a number 8. I mean, not to bring it to Arsenal, but it kind of gives like trying to shoehorn Kai Havertz into the midfield when he's eating as number 9, right? Like, why do that? But yeah, I don't think that we've seen who's gonna fill that role and make it their own, alongside Eric and Liam. And I think unfortunately for Joaquin, it was kind of a, not a terrible performance by any stretch. I think he was actually like kind of tidy on the ball, but just not super impactful, right? So,
well, it's interesting because you think like when you're playing a forward in central midfield, you're like, okay, well, technically good player, can operate in tight spaces. I'm asking him to kind of like operate on the turn and have like that ability to break lines maybe on the dribble, like, and bringing that sort of further back. So you're like, he's going to get on the ball more. He's going to have more influence. And like all of that makes sense on paper. And in the stat line, he plays for 74 minutes. He completes 100% of his passes, which on paper sounds great. He only attempted 16 and he only touches the ball 28 times. So like he's playing much deeper, but we're also not getting him on the ball all that much. So it's like, okay, well, if we're not getting him on the ball that much, then why drop him deeper into midfield? Because he isn't able to successfully complete a dribble. He plays 3 crosses, all of which were inaccurate. And then he's not like a combative guy, right? Like typically. So he doesn't win either of the aerial duels that he's involved in. He only wins 50% of the ground duels. So I think like in general, you're getting like when you play a player like Joaquin there, and this is, again, I'm not trying to dig the player out. I'm questioning like the role and how it operates in the, because Toomey has not been successful there. Aaron has not been particularly impactful there. So the question becomes like, why continue to deploy anybody in that role? Like, if we don't have the player who can make an impact there, then why not just, and I've probably said this, 3 weeks in a row or however long in a row, just change the shape. Like, just don't have anybody play there and push that person further forward and let Toomey or Joaquin or whoever play in a wide forward position up with Amando and Dylan. And then like, how much could we possibly be losing by moving that guy out of midfield? Like, because they're just not that involved in what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, this team really feels like the personnel it has could easily become a 3-4-3.
Yeah.
Where the wingbacks kind of augment midfield,
Yeah. And with Bolu
really
playing the way he is, like, you can have him tuck in sort of like as a hybrid.
He can kind of become the 6.
He's sort of the 6 and like
of
the central defender of the 3, right? Like he can kind of
right,
operate a little further forward. I think there's interesting things you can do with the personnel. And to me, like, and again, who the fuck am I? But like, I just think that if Joaquin is out there to connect things and to like be more of like something of like a hybrid 8-10, like advanced playmaker, or, you know, the most advanced of the midfield and all that, and he only touches the ball 28 times in 74 minutes, it's like, okay, well, clearly something is not right about that role, because he's not getting the ball enough to make a difference.
You know what I find really interesting too is that, as we know, goal involvements are weighted very heavily on FOTMob's
I wondered whether
ratings.
This is yeah.
And he gets the assist for Nevarez's ridiculous strike, which like he literally just like putts it to him. There's nothing worldy about the assist, but even with the assist, his rating is pretty poor.
Yeah, I mean 6.8, like to not get above 7 with a goal involvement does indicate like broad underperformance, I guess, would be in other statistical categories, to like put it, I guess, politely. The bottom line is like, I think he does about as much as he can with what he had. And the system just doesn't get him the ball enough. You know, when you think about the guys who played in like advanced playmaker roles for Locomotive over the years, you think of guys like Dylan Maris, Diego Luna, like guys
those are number 10s.
Influential. Like they're just, and they were never
Sebastian Velasquez.
And it's funny because Dylan actually did play in sort of a hybrid 8-10 at one point. Like the furthest forward of the midfield 3 rather than like a wide forward or something like that. But those sorts of games, like everything felt like it was going through them, right? Like they're in that central area because so much of the game is going to come to you. The way that we play and the way that we deploy our fullbacks, we actually don't use them for build-up all that much. Like we don't use our midfielders as build-up as much as maybe we should, or maybe we think we should. So if that's the thing, then like why bother having them in there? Because it just feels like they get bypassed. And Eric and Liam always seem to find the game in some way. Like they always kind of find a way to get into the game, or Eric, at least the last couple of games, has sort of forced the game to come to him a little bit, I think. Yeah. But this other 8, like it's just not making sense for me, because I mean they should be getting a lot of the ball, and they're just not. And couple that with the fact that I think Joaquin is like devastating as a wide forward or a center forward, and you're kind of it's a double whammy, because it's like, what are we missing by not putting him in those areas?
Yeah. I mean, and the other way that I could think of using this 8 ostensibly is if he's not going to be part of the build-up, then he should have all his touches happen in the box. He should be a late arriver, late runs, second striker type vibes. But he wasn't really even doing that. And Arun hasn't really done that. And Toomey hasn't really done that. So, for me, it's not really...
Well, I think it's worth having this conversation now about our offensive buildup, because I think we'll go ahead and get all of this out of the way, because for all of the work, I mean, we talk about it week in and week out. I'm not going to belabor the point, but we talk about the amount of work that Justin Dillon does in terms of like, he's battling center backs for 90 minutes or however long he stays out there, which typically is the full 90. Like they just have him run. So he's backing people down. He's trying to win a lot of headers. He's trying to like hold up play, which is extremely difficult work for a long time. And then he has to be the guy also on the end of these moves that we're relying on to like finish, win a penalty, whatever. And Moreno, I think, is also struggling to like get involved in attack because we are so reliant on like winning that first ball, like that's played long to Justin. He has to win it, and then Moreno has to be close enough to him for him to lay it off. And then they're kind of playing like in a game by themselves. Like the two forwards are playing their own game separate from the rest of the team, or at least it feels like that sometimes. And so I wanted to bring up, I think, did you see John Morrissey's at USL Tactics for anyone on Twitter? But did you see his tweet regarding XG margin and that versus actual goal difference performance in the USL? It was
kind of on like a line.
Yeah. So it's essentially taking expected goals for and expected goals against. You subtract one from the other and you get your expected goal difference, and then your actual goal difference, which is how many goals have you scored minus how many goals have you conceded. And he put it on a graph to show like how people were performing in actual goal difference versus their expected goal difference. And what he was trying to demonstrate is like there are some teams who are like, you know, doing really well. They have a high goal difference and they're maybe outperforming their goal difference. And there are teams who are like, hey, they're right where they should be in terms of their goal difference against expected goal difference. The graph is not necessarily very kind to Locomotive in the sense that we are, if you're saying that the teams at the top right of the graphic are the best performing teams in that they're allowing the fewest goals and scoring the most goals. Locomotive is better, quote unquote, in this specific regard than only about 5 teams. And they are performing almost exactly in line with like against their expected. So our expected goal difference is somewhere in the like minus half a goal.
So in other words, we're not unlucky.
Right.
We're not performing.
Yeah.
We're getting what we deserve.
Yeah. Because if we were way below the line and our actual goal difference was like horrible and we were saying like, oh, we're just like not, or our expected goal difference was fine, but our actual goal difference is bad, then we're like, hey, we're just unlucky and we'll regress to the mean and like things will improve. Where we're at goal difference wise is like exactly where we should be based on our expected goal difference, which suggests that we're conceding about the amount of goals that we should, and we're scoring about the amount of goals that we should based on the underlying numbers, which is not the news you want to hear when you don't have a win, right? Like you would want to hear that like, no, it's going to get better. And so I think like when we're having this offense conversation, Mikka, it just feels like obviously this game, very difficult on the road. And I want to make it clear that like there aren't many teams that are going to go into Al Lang and create a ton of chances or anything like that. But the chances we did create, and I will say maybe unlucky in a couple of areas, like our buildup was good, but offside flag went up, or, you know, something like there were a handful of chances where it was like, maybe, or we just didn't quite get the shot away, or the final ball wasn't quite there. But in general, despite the patterns being a little bit better on Saturday night, like we still did not like create much against Rowdies, like in terms of sort of the free flowing or like a good move resulting in a shot. Like it was a lot of, there was some really good play, and it's not necessarily like leading to the end result of a good shot opportunity, which I guess is like what offense ultimately is.
Well, and I think that there's no better example of that than the 2 chances that Moreno has in the first half, back to back. First in the 20th minute, he has that cross from Lucas Stauffer that he heads pretty much right into the hands of Jordan Farr. And then there's another really decent bit of wing play between the two of them where there's a quick throw in to Moreno. And he's able to get the shot off, but again, caught by Farr. So it's just like those like passing triangles, if you will, are looking better by the week. Like those relationships are improving between the players, but it's not resulting in goals necessarily. And we'll get on this, of course, because of Nevarez's goal, but so far, like many of our goals have been like individual bits of brilliance, right? And that's not winning football. It's not sustainable, right?
Right.
There has to be some kind of like cohesive way of creating shots and ultimately goals. So
yeah, because I mean, on the stat line, 9 shots for Locomotive, I would say 5 end up being on target, and the one that probably sticks out to me is the of our like genuine chances is the Dylan curled shot that goes or that's saved actually, I think by Farr shortly after the Nevarez goal, where it looked like, man, we may actually like ride this momentum a little bit and may actually like snatch a win. Dylan curls one like towards the top corner, but again, it's like, it's sort of, we've got the ball in the wing, guy like shapes to shoot and ends up getting like a good shot away, but it's not necessarily like a bunch of passes like leading to a shot, and it's not ultimately like a quality shot either. It's like from outside the area, almost on the left wing, like kind of curled effort. It is ultimately great technique, but again, sort of indicative of the fact that like a lot of what we're doing is reliant on individuals, and we're not really creating a ton. And I think Dylan is sort of the poster child of that, in that he is having to do so much work and toil for 90 minutes for like so little gain, right? Like he's sort of relied on to like, whether it's holding up play and bringing Moreno into it and playing a nice through ball. And he does like a handful of times. There's like, he plays some really great passes. And so I don't want to take anything away from like what Justin's doing. And it just feels like there's so many times where it's like, he will win that first ball or chest the ball down. And then it's like, where is everybody else supposed to be? Or like, who's he about to bring into play? And it's sort of like him and Moreno against the world. And it just feels sometimes like the shape isolates them and doesn't necessarily give them the best opportunity to bring other people in to the play. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the fact that like it does, the patterns were definitely better. And I think it is like, I don't want to go too negative because I do want to say that like the wingbacks in particular, it did feel more natural in how they linked with the central midfielders. So I don't know exactly like why, but it did feel better in terms of trying to, like when we were trying to get the ball down and pass. And it just still feels like those moments are really few and far between in terms of like how often we try to play through teams. And sometimes I think like we almost need to back ourselves a little bit more. And trust ourselves, because there's been so many times this season where our best passage of play in a game will be because a midfielder like either carried the ball through the lines or passed like through the lines, through the center of the field, and tried to create in that way. I think there was similar moments in this game where it was like, oh, we can get the ball down and play when we want.
Right. I mean, should we talk about the one Locomotive player who absolutely did back himself with the goal? Because this might be the most insane goal that's ever been scored in Locomotive history.
I mean, yeah, it's up there. And I want to talk about the goal first, and then we can talk about the stuff surrounding the goal on the internet right now, because that's a whole other thing. So Javier Nevarez on loan from FC Juarez, out on the right, so he clears the ball sort of poorly, and Joaquin Rivas wins a free kick in like trying to win the ball. Nevarez runs over, puts the ball down, plays a quick like short pass to Rivas, who plays it back to Nevarez, full 75 yards from goal. He looks up, he sees Jordan far off his line, and absolutely hammers a shot. Like, not an overhit pass, not a cross, not a mishit cross, whatever. He hammers a shot at goal. And I mean, we were incredulous, I think, would be the, like, we were laughing. It was shock, it was laughter. There was no, anytime someone scores from there, it like the initial reaction is, what did we even just witness?
Well, I think I said on stream, no way.
Yeah.
That was my reaction. My first thought was no way. And then I promptly like left the screen for a second to just gather myself.
Faded into the green screen.
No, I mean, it's an absolutely incredible piece of skill, because it does take skill to do that.
Yeah.
To put just enough power on it to where it'll beat the keeper as far out as far was. But also to make sure it dips down and into the goal.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, fair play to Nevarez for trying it. And it goes in, and we'll take it.
Yep.
Again, we said at the top of the show, we don't want to, be too negative, but it is a piece of individual effort that comes out of nowhere, definitely like a bolt from the blue. But sometimes that's just what you need.
Yeah.
And I hope that it gives him confidence. And hopefully that transmits to the rest of the team. But yeah, just an incredible moment. And it's always funny to see a goalkeeper like punished for being that far out. So, and I guess the San Antonio fans were loving it, so that's kind of funny.
Yeah, the only time you'll see any sort of like Locomotive San Antonio solidarity. The goal is insane. And I think it's funny because it's one of those where I don't even blame Jordan Farr, or don't even really put it on him, because as a keeper, when someone is, shot just shy of 80 yards from your goal, him standing on his own, if he was back on his own goal line, it wouldn't even make sense. Like, it'd be like, right. Jordan, what are you doing? Why are you got to cover the space behind the back four. Like, what if they play a pass in behind and Dylan runs onto it, all that sort of stuff. So I don't even necessarily blame him for being off his line, because who in the right mind is going to shoot from there? And who's gonna actually put it in the back of the net? Like, nobody. To have the thought to do it is wild. To actually pull it off in the moment is insane bit of skill. And like you said, it's like, imagine an NFL kicker kicking a field goal from that distance. One, not really possible, but you don't have to kick it as high and as far as you possibly can, because then it's just sailing out into, Tampa Bay. Like, if he just boots it as hard as he can, like, it has to come down and go in under the bar in a goal about the width of goalposts, right? Like, in football. So, I mean, this is absolutely insane. It's from the flank, and I just want to go on record, and I said this on the USL show last night as well, and I will say it again. There is a campaign going on right now in USL social media to minimize this goal, and fan voting on goal of the week or goal of the month or goal of the season or whatever is very stupid, because people are dumb and they don't understand what they're looking at. I am a big fan of democracy, and I am ready for USL fans to lose their right to vote on goal of the week. Juan David Torres for Charleston Battery scored a great goal, an amazing goal, even from just inside the attacking half and central. Nevarez scored this from his own half on the flank. Like, it is an objective measure that it is the better goal. The fact that it's going to lose because Locomotive fans are depressed and are not mobilized to go vote in online polls. And it could therefore not be recognized for what it is, which is the best goal that will be scored this season. Like, it is
so our form is a form of voter suppression, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Our poor start to the season is actually harming Locomotive performance in fan voted polls. But this is an objective thing. This is the best goal. And it's just sad that now it will not be thought of that way, because Charleston fans are voting for their guy, and even New Mexico fans are voting for a Greg Hurst chip, which Greg Hurst, it's a fine goal. If that wins goal of the week, the competition simply loses all meaning. It just I can't handle the fact that the best goal won't be recognized as the best goal. So
I hear you. I feel your pain.
It's
but
difficult.
We know the truth.
We do
know it's the best goal that'll be scored all season.
We do. And I look forward to snarkily tweeting at the league when they drop goal of the season type stuff, and this is not included because, Juan David Torres got sent into SportsCenter first or whatever. So, anyways. There was a period of time where it felt like we might get away with this. Like, if it felt like we might actually win after we scored. And there was a couple of moments where it did feel like the belief for maybe the first time this whole season, like the belief was there that they could do something because something incredible had happened. Like you said, like it could be a turning point even off of this like individual piece of skill. And unfortunately, Tampa Bay's quality like did in the end show through. Danny Crisostomo, who was playing in central midfield, he finds himself out on the wing, plays a cross in, and Arteaga essentially does what Amando Moreno could not on a similar cross in the same penalty box, essentially, you know, maybe 60 minutes earlier, when Arteaga is able to just put enough power back into it to kind of spin the ball away from Jahmali Waite with his head. And Waite, who was spectacular, even he could do nothing to keep it out and 1-1 Rowdies.
Yeah, it's a really good headed finish from Arteaga, who had been threatening, you know, before that. He had sent some warning shots. He was putting himself about and in the box. And we know what kind of threat that he can be. I guess my problem with this goal is that it is also poorly defended. I think as a central defender, you cannot let your man run across you like that, the way that Tony Alfaro did. And in fact, I think by the time Alfaro realizes it's too late, because Arteaga had time to run so perfectly to run just across him and meet the ball. Yeah. So, and on top of that, there's really not much pressure put on Crisostomo before the cross. Yeah. So I think we just switched off a little bit there. And at this level, you're gonna pay, and we did. Yeah. And maybe too, that is in some slight mitigation. Maybe that is also something that's plaguing Locomotive, is that when we slip up or when we make mistakes, they are punished so ruthlessly, where other teams maybe are making mistakes and not being punished as ruthlessly. Yeah. Or as often. Sure. But for us, it feels like our margin for error is so low. But I mean, take nothing away from Tampa Bay, because they were putting the pressure on. They did dominate possession. Mm-hmm. They created a lot more shots than we did. So, you know, it was only going to show at some point. And I think that bit of quality from Arteaga and maybe a little bit of slack defending from us, you know, turns 3 points into 1. Yeah. Yeah, it was. I think the manner of the goal too, and how simple it is. When you have defended sort of valiantly up until that point, it does feel a little deflating, because it's like, man, we've really put a lot in to try to get all 3 points here, and not being able to see out, you know, a half hour or so, like with the lead, can definitely hurt. That being said, though, the Arteaga goal comes 73 minutes in. Is there something to be said for the fact that Locomotive do see out the draw? Like, even though they couldn't see out the win, seeing out the draw with a team, you know, Tampa Bay sort of seized the initiative at that point with the goal. It feels like, you know, they're at home, they have the crowd behind them, and they've got time enough to find a winner for sure. Is there something to be said for the fact that Locomotive do at least cling on to that point? I think they cling on to the point because of Jahmali Waite. I mean, you know, the 87th minute, he makes that insane stop to deny Arteaga the brace. Yeah. Gets down really quickly to his right post to preserve the draw. So, again, I think, like, Jahmali has been so, like, instrumental to things not being more embarrassing. Yeah. Which is crazy when we're winless still.
Yeah.
But yeah, he deserves his flowers because once again, I think he was very good. And I think that's also something that surprised me about John Morrissey's graph is like I would have expected a little bit more XG against, actually. Like it feels like Jahmali has prevented more goals than he has. But statistically, clearly, like they're not considered like amazing chances. But it certainly feels like he's prevented a lot of goals.
Yeah,
like short goals.
I think that's fair. Yeah, and it would be interesting to see how that's getting balanced out. Because I would have thought, or maybe I don't know. It would be interesting to see the math and see what our expected goals against is, because I'm sure, especially with some of the chances in Tampa, that it is higher than what we've actually conceded. The weight conversation, I think is. We also get into this classic USL territory where the club is sort of bigging up like, hey, look at like all these, Jahmali Waite is now ranked however many keepers, like he's made this many saves in the league. And, how many years now have we banged the drum that like, hey, your keeper making a lot of saves is bad? Right. So it did feel rough to be on the other end of that conversation, because we were always talking about how good Logan was, despite him never being towards the top of the goalkeeping or the saves charts, because he was only being asked to make one or two like big saves a game, rather than like making volume saves, because we controlled possession and we typically had a majority of the shots, all that sort of stuff. So they didn't face that many shots, which was the ideal. And now like you said, it's definitely tough to be in a position where it's like your goalkeeper has to be elite, because if he wasn't, we'd be in an even worse position.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know where we'd be without him. And I think it's really important too that he like has started as well as he has, because we also have faced that trauma of like our goalkeeper trying to get to grips with the team a la Evan Newton. So I mean, can't fault Jahmali at all this season, really. Yeah.
The penalty concession against Oakland is really like the only mark on his record. And he's been fantastic, and I think he is that moment against Oakland sort of was notwithstanding. He's been extremely smart about when he comes to claim, when he comes out of the box, how he sweeps. Like he's just been very intelligent about his positioning, and I think he puts himself in very good positions to make good saves. And he's got, insane reflexes, very strong hands. He doesn't really give away a lot of rebounds, which I think has been like very impressive, where he's not making an insane save and then immediately being scored on because it's dropped at the feet of an attacker. Like he's pushing it out. He's like getting it out of the danger area as well. He's catching a lot.
Right.
So yeah, I think in general he's just been so solid, and it's a shame because when you have a goalkeeper that good, that should be sort of the foundation that you build a very, very like serious contending team on, and Locomotive could still turn into that. Like there's a long way to go in the season, but to not have capitalized on such a strong goalkeeping performance just feels like a missed opportunity.
Right. But I mean, you take the point.
Yeah.
I think at full time we felt like, you know what, fine. Like,
yeah,
we move.
Yep. You take the point, you head back to your room at the Hilton Bayside or Bayfront.
Yeah.
The Hilton Bayfront. You head back there, you know, you get a good night's rest, and then you grab an English muffin at the Continental Breakfast before you get on a plane back to El Paso. But well, Mikka, anything else on the Rowdies before we preview what's next?
No, I think that's it. I think it's a decent point.
Yeah.
Still more to improve. And then we go back home to FC Tulsa this weekend.
Yep, it is FC Tulsa at the SWUP. Tulsa form-wise, not the best. So they're not coming in great form, but they have a couple of like decent draws. They're coming off of, you know, running into the buzzsaw that is Charleston Battery right now.
Right.
And they are what I would characterize as like a decent team that is missing by far their most dangerous player in Philip Goodrum.
Now, is Philip Goodrum injured, or I was trying to figure that out while I was like researching. I'm
not really sure. And I know that's like a bad answer. Goodrum always has like rumors surrounding him. So like it took him a long time to announce him in the offseason. The whole reason he left Memphis in the first place was because he wanted to like go abroad or to MLS, because he came off that like insane season with Memphis. They didn't let him go, and that's part of the reason he's in Tulsa. There's just a lot. It's kind of a lot there. So when he's missing from the team and there's not like a, hey, he's like clearly injured or something like that, it does make my mind wander to the possibility of like, is he on his way out? But I don't know that for sure.
Okay. Yeah, because it's hard to like glean what was going on there. I just noticed.
I think he's hurt like officially, but who knows?
Got it.
So they've had Stefan Stojanovic, who is like the young attacker who's been up there in his place. I think he's like 23. I want to say he came through the Fire, like Chicago Fire system. And, you know, fine striker, seems to have a bit about him. And like, he's not Goodrum in terms of how clinical he is. And I remember the Phoenix game in particular. I remember he could have had a hat trick in the opening half hour with the chances he was getting. And he just scored the one because Phoenix, for whatever reason, just defensively are quite poor. But yeah, so I mean, last 5 games for them, they lost to OC, drew Phoenix 3-3, drew Sac Republic, which, I mean, that's
a good result.
A good point. They beat North Colorado Hailstorm in the Open Cup, and then they came off of that and they got absolutely destroyed by Charleston 4-1 on Saturday. That Torres goal, the talking point, I guess, but and it was Tulsa's lone goal comes from the penalty spot. So offensively, you know, that was one of their opted to find big chances. So they only create one other one in the match, and just in general, like it was sort of over as a contest before it got going. But yeah, a bit of an enigma, Tulsa, because they had one team built about halfway through the offseason, and then that all kind of got blown up when Blair Gavin left to go take a MLS assistant's job, and now it's
and Richie Ryan is no longer at FC Tulsa as well. So
FC Cincinnati U19's head coach. So
right.
So yeah, now it's Mario Sanchez in Tulsa.
Yeah, Mario Sanchez, who it appears this is his first time coaching men's professional soccer. So he's even more green to the men's professional game than Brian Clairhout.
Yeah.
Actually, that's probably not even a fair comparison. Brian's got a lot more experience comparatively. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's really fascinating. I also see that FC Tulsa employ one Alexis Suehi in defense.
They do.
A player that I wanted Locomotive to sign before he joined New Mexico United.
Yeah.
Then he went on to play in Union Omaha, and he backstopped that Omaha team against us in the Open Cup last season, and now he's rocked up at Tulsa. So
yep.
Yeah, so he's and it seems that he's very important in that back line. They've yet to keep a clean sheet, I believe, but
yeah,
that's not all been on him. Justin Portillo is there, he's another New Mexico alum.
Yeah, he
right?
came from New Mexico.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he seems to be their
Rashid
chief.
Tete, I think, as well.
Rashid Tete, yeah. But yeah, Portillo seems to be their chief playmaker, really, trying to get the ball to the likes of Stojanovic, Goodrum when he's available, I guess.
Blaine Ferry.
So, yeah.
Blaine Ferry is another of that attacking quartet that they typically use. So yeah.
Yeah, so they've got bits and bobs about them, FC Tulsa do, but maybe they just haven't gotten the rhythm of the season yet. I mean, they have played the least amount of games of anyone in the Western Conference. So this will be their 6th game, and it'll be our 8th. So cheers
just
to
USL
schedule
things.
Makers.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, but I mean, we've got a decent record against FC Tulsa. I don't think we've ever lost to them, right?
No. Yeah, I think we've drawn, but yeah, I don't think we've ever. I can't think of a time we've lost to them.
Let me see here.
In
6 matches, we've won 3 and we've drawn 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to the time when they were known as the Roughnecks.
Roughnecks. Yeah. So history is on our side, but history's been on our side in previous fixtures, and it's not come out that way. So
yeah,
we'll just have to see how that goes.
Yeah, one other player for Tulsa to look out for, Arthur Rogers, who fullback, led Northern Colorado Hailstorm in League One, and I think may have been up towards the top of the league in terms of assists. Now he had Trevor Amon in that team, who is now scoring goals for fun for Sac Republic. But he is the sort of great delivery from wide areas fullback, and I think he delivers their free kicks and corners as well, so a really great crosser of the ball. And given the goal that we conceded in Tampa, definitely something to look out for, although I will be counting my blessings that they don't have someone like Amon up front, who can hurt you in the air as much as him. But yeah, no, that is something to look out for.
that's fair enough that you bring that up, because Tulsa statistically are one of the best crossing sides in the league. They like north of 5 accurate crosses per match, so
yeah,
that's definitely a threat. And then something else that stood out to me about Tulsa, they've got the 4th most fouls per match in the league. So trying to break up play, it seems, Mario Sanchez's side is. So, yeah, we'll see if they are as cynical as the numbers suggest. But we're at home, so hopefully we can control proceedings.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, typically we'd like have a debate about like who's gonna play and maybe like what shape we play or what sort of roles. I mean, we're sort of getting to a point in the season where it just feels like we're gonna play what we play. Like there is no, if we haven't deviated from it yet, like I'm not holding my breath that we're gonna suddenly see any changes like to the shape. It may be, personnel here and there.
Yeah.
But it feels like we've sort of got the team that we've got. Like this is who's gonna play where.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it would be odd if we came out with something radically different. But I mean, then again, who knows? So I think I guess in terms of stuff to look for Locomotive at home, is the message just build on like just really hyper focus on like the good of the Tampa result in terms of spacing and patterns and those sorts of things, like just try to continue to build some positive momentum and hope the result comes? Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that if I were speaking to the players, which would be a horrible idea because I have no coaching experience, but if I was, I mean, I think I would stress to them that like their attempt to play at Tampa Bay's tempo was admirable, and I think that they should keep trying to play that high tempo. I mean, I really loved the quick restarts and the throw-ins, and making the other team chase. So I think if we can keep doing that, then it should lead to good things for us. But yeah, just trying to keep the energy high, and really create more shots. I mean, I think that's something too, like that really needs to improve. But there were green shoots in that Tampa Bay game, and yes, again, I've said it a million times already, but Tampa could have definitely blown us away on another night, but they didn't. So right. I think that we should absolutely take the good and try to build on that. For sure.
And mentally, like, there is a lot to be gained from the fact that we saw the result. In the league, we were coming off the back of two 1s converted into 3-2, 2-1 wins converted into 3-2 losses. So, just simply not doing that once, like, hopefully there is a bit of a confidence boost. And they are focused on that, because ultimately, for as much as like we're going to point out and we're going to like say what we see, we definitely want, the team will need that, like, just that mental boost of, hey, we can hang with anybody, like, on any given day, and there is no, like, and just facing that adversity and seeing through it, hopefully is enough to get them going. But prediction wise, what do you think about Tulsa coming to town?
I think we'll score. I think Tulsa just, I gave flowers to Alexis Suehi, but I think, like, just on the basis of what they've done, they've not kept a clean sheet yet. I don't think, anyway. Yeah, they're leaky. So I think we'll score. Jeez, I don't know. I don't know. Let's go 2-1. Like, surely our win is close at hand, right? Yeah. I mean, surely.
And Tulsa is one of those teams that they are slightly outperforming a worse expected goal difference than us. So in theory, they actually should be a little bit lower in terms of those based on expected goals. So yeah, I like the 2-1 shout. I think that's, you know, clean sheet is still a little aspirational right now for Locomotive. So I like 2-1, and I hope for the team's sake, like, that they, in front of the home fans, can give them something to latch onto and start to build something, you know, more positive about this team, and maybe make more of a connection again, because I think ultimately that is something that's just been lacking with the poor home form over the last couple of years. Like, just haven't given the home crowds enough to really sink their teeth into. So I'm hoping that they can, get a good win. Tulsa is an opportunity, I think, and with some of the positives from the Tampa game, hopefully that translates into a good result. But that is 7 p.m. local kickoff. So make sure you've got your ticks, and hope everyone is able to enjoy. Mikka, are you going to be in attendance?
Yeah, I should be.
Cool.
Should be.
Cool. Yeah. It was I know I talked about it last week, but it was nice to be back, and hopefully it's a nice night in the press box. Not too cold like it's getting up here. We're chilling back down, even though it's like almost May.
Oh, really? Jeez.
It's in the 30s today.
What in the world?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I don't miss the Midwest.
Yeah. Yeah. Mistakes were made.
Well, hopefully your visit just like reinforced that you need to come back. Even though there was like a freaking sandstorm on your last day, but that's also like par for the course. So
yeah, I mean, I can't just go and just get the good things. Like, I gotta get the real experience. I couldn't just go and escape without some sand, without some, Darude in my life.
Darude sandstorm. It's actually going to be windy on Saturday. Oh God.
Oh, interesting. Well, it's a good thing. Right. It's a good thing Brendan Burke is in Hartford. If anybody hasn't seen it, just YouTube Brendan Burke's press conference from Hartford's loss to San Antonio. It's comedy.
Really?
It's very good.
I'm gonna do right now.
It's very good. So check that out. But before you do that, hit the subscribe button on whatever you're listening to this to. And let us know what you think of the episode. Let us know what you guys think about the matchup against Tulsa, and let us know how you guys are thinking Locomotive will do. We will recap the Tulsa game, and then we'll obviously be looking ahead to the next match as well. But until then, hope everyone has a good rest of your week, and stay loco.